First of all, forgive me my absence for the last couple of weeks with schedules and technical difficulties abounding. Um, just wasn't able to get it done. I have a note from my mother if you really feel like you need something like that. But it is time for our weekly devotional from, again, one of the smartest minds in the room, Mind the Fish. I was looking yesterday at Ephesians chapter 6, which is a great chapter as far as I'm concerned. But verse 13 says this. It says, "Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm." Again, I don't believe that this is the end times. I don't believe this is the precursor to the end times. I think that the end times are getting closer, but I don't think we're there yet. I think we're doing okay. But having said that, I think that somebody really needs to, again, throw the year 2020 a Snickers bar or something. It's not a really great, exciting, wonderful time. So how do we as Christians, how do we continue to do the thing that God has called us to do? Because again, one of the things that I absolutely maintain, folks, the mission has not changed. God still expects us to do some things. And if we want to be obedient to him, we need to do that. But again, in times like this, how do we go about doing those sorts of things? And I think that's our answer. God has given us protections. He has given us things that we can use so that we can continue to stand, continue to do the things that God has called us to do. Now, Paul, in writing this, was, of course, in prison, and so had a primary example of what armor looked like. He just needed to look over to the nearest Roman soldier and make an analogy that this was like that was like this, and so on and so forth. Today, we're not necessarily familiar much with armor. If you're in the military, you certainly are. However, those of us who are rank and file civilians really don't understand. And so sometimes I think we get wrapped around the axle about what is each piece of gear and how is it supposed to work. And the fact of the matter is that I really think that we're focusing at that point on the wrong thing. It's not a physical kind of armor. It's not something that you can exactly put on. It's a spiritual thing that we have to put on in a spiritual way. Unfortunately, again, those of us who are Christians are spiritual beings, and we can do that. And so instead of focusing on a helmet, a breastplate, shoes, and a shield, we need to focus on what Paul was actually describing. And those things were easy. It's truth, righteousness, readiness to share the gospel, faith, salvation, and especially the Holy Spirit. Again, there's a kind of an emphasis because the sword of the Spirit, being goofy human beings, we kind of, some of us really like that idea of having an offensive weapon, and the Holy Spirit is the pivotal thing for us. Sometimes, no matter how much defense you use, eventually you're going to have to go nuclear. You're going to have to sit there and break out the big guns just so that you can walk away. Well, for us, again, the big guns, that's the Holy Spirit, and we've been talking about that Sunday morning, so I don't really need to belabor that. But the focus, the emphasis that we need to have, the thing that we need to do is, is to focus on those qualities that God has for us. And the great thing about it, Galatians 5 tells us very much, or most of those things, I should say, are really just, they are the fruit of the Spirit. And the more that we focus in on Jesus, that fruit just naturally comes about. So it's not a difficult thing for us to do, but it is something for us to do. We need to put those things on. We need to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus because he's the author, the finisher of our faith. Remember, when Peter got in trouble, it wasn't because he went out walking on the water. There are only two people in history that have done that. Peter is one of them. It was when he started taking his eyes off of Jesus, looking at the circumstances. That's when he got into trouble. And that's when we get into trouble, when we get fixated on what is going on around us and we don't focus in on God. Again, nothing of what is happening today or will happen in our future is going to take him by surprise. Focus on him. Do what he tells you to do. We've got a mission. People depend on it. All right. I will see you again next week, hopefully. All right. Love you guys. Bye-bye.